Hi, I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi of the JQK Law Firm, and today I want to go over an EB-1A decision or three EB-1A decisions that came out on appeal, which, let's back it up. These are not cases our office has done. These are cases other people have filed. Were denied by USCIS, the Administrative Appeals Office, the AAO, where people could appeal denials of the certain cases, not every type of case, but certain ones like national interest waiver, extraordinary ability, EB-1A, those kind of cases and say, there are errors made by USCIS in their decision. So one thing I do to keep up on the latest, trends and information and be able to compare cases to make a stronger immigration case in the EB-1A, L1, EB-1C, NIW field, and all these fields, I read these cases, which is excruciating because there's a lot of reading to do, but that's what makes you better at what you do. So today I want to go over a couple of dancer cases that popped up, one in December 2024, January 2025, another one in February 2025. Since three came up the same amount of time, I thought, a lot of people who are dancers may find this video and can find it helpful. So we're going to go through it here. Now, none of the information here is intended as individual legal advice. This is just general kind of guidance. And as we'll see, like some things they say, well, they'll pursue here, some things they won't. So let me share my screen as we go through these three cases. But again, schedule a private consultation about your case if you want to get into it more. That's the best way to do it. But this is really good because a lot of people contact us and say, I saw the criteria requirements for, EB-1A. And, I have them. And it's like, well, it's a little bit more stringent than that. It's not as easy as it looks. And I'm going to explain why. There's always more to it that they want to analyze. Now, this first decision I'm going to go over, this is a December case. Now, I'll mention this for all three cases. They're all for dancers. This one's a dancer and dance instructor. This one's for, oh, why is it not loading? Okay, there we go. Dancer and choreographer. And the last one is dancer, salsa dancer, choreographer, instructor. Now, normally USCIS will say that you have to choose one of these. You're either dancer, choreographer, instructor. You can't choose three of them to win this category. For some reason, they didn't even call this out on any of these cases. But that's something typical. So if you're a baseball player who's also a coach, if you're, that kind of thing, they're like, you're either a coach or a player. They're different skills to have extraordinary ability in. So they argue. I'm going to be brief on these, not as more detail as I do for my attorney training programs on this kind of stuff. But the first thing you kind of see, this is a ballroom dancer. That person was. They added awards that were for youth and junior competitions. This is for Ukraine. Now, the government here said that this youth or junior level is not accepted. We're not going to, this too young. And so that's why you got to be careful of. If there is a transition from having high awards in the youth or junior level, and then they have it on the professional level, then we use it. But if that's it, many times they don't accept this saying that's just youthful. And then they also argue that just because anyone in the country is national in scope can compete with it is not the same as a competition having national and international recognition. And so that's very important. And that becomes hard for a lot of countries who don't have good paperwork and documents related to the award. Now, we have to show that this isn't just some random award someone made up. This has a lot of recognition in newspapers, articles, globally, regionally, that kind of thing. If you can't document that, then you're going to be out of luck. Next, the person usually this is an easy one for a lot of people, but judging the work of others. Here they had a letter that didn't really describe what was being judged and had inconsistent information in it, and they called it out. They said on one part you say the judging was on a certain date, and then on the paperwork it says it was on another date. You didn't get into more details of how the judging happened, records to corroborate your claims. So they didn't win that criteria either. And importantly, a lot of people have O1s already, which is an extraordinary ability type of case. But that's a non-immigrant visa. It has, frankly, no bearing on the EB-1A extraordinary ability case. So EB-1A, just because you had O1, it doesn't make a difference. So that's wanted to share those. These are typical things people tell us when they contact us. We have these and we dig in deeper, and these kind of issues emerge. So for the next case, you'll see a lot of the same stuff. They did argue one that was very difficult to do, which is memberships and associations. Honestly, I rarely get this unless you have a really strong case. They outline the four things they want to see: that the person is a member of an association, the associations in their extraordinary ability field, and that association requires outstanding achievements as a condition for membership. So we need bylaws of how they judge that. And four, the outstanding achievements are judged by national and international experts. So who are the people doing the judging? And this person was the Belarusian Dance Sports Alliance, and they had like articles of association, but they just provided a breakdown of one of the board members who was going to be judging them, and they didn't include the documentary evidence of the criteria by which they're being judged, so they weren't able to get that. Then when it comes to published material about the person, they did YouTube pages, which is kind of worthless. They didn't have transcripts, and they didn't establish later on, they argue on appeal that the YouTube pages they were using were like the respected dance community YouTube channels, but then they didn't back it up to show that they're respected ones. So it's a tough one to make that argument, and they failed right there. And then another very difficult one they did is original contributions of major significance. Essentially, they did really important work, had some letters, one from her dad, I think, or coach or something like that. And they just, when they say original contribution, you really got to show as a game changer in the field that you're the person who did it. And if you don't show that, you're out. And then finally, this one about high salary, and they get into details that like the documentation estimates, like they said in 2023, they have this salary information for what the average salary is for the person. But then like the pay stubs, they showed her from 2018. So there's a time discrepancy right there to say, well, you made that in 2018, not 2023. More importantly, they also, one of the other people, paylab.com, that provide average salary. It was undated when that salary basis was from. And importantly, they said like, there's even more things. One is just because you had an average doesn't show you're much above it. So even if you make double the average, doesn't necessarily mean it's high. So we need better statistics that show the ranges of the salary, which are not here. And also, they compare the work they did as a dance instructor on a cruise ship as opposed to a dancer in Belarus. And they said distinguish these aren't the same earnings, is different from being a person that's doing dancing on a boat, on a cruise ship, if you will, a cruise ship entertainer, as opposed to a dancer in Belarus. You see that they get into the nitty gritty of details of what you're doing. And that's why these cases are not that easy. It's very easy for them to knock out any piece of evidence that you provide. And we see the kind of the same thing in this last one for this dancer. Membership and organization, still the same problem. They had some sort of let's see, letter from a legal representative of this dancing association, but it really had the same problems. They didn't get into how they judge it, who's judging it, all that kind of stuff. So it failed right there. And then published material about them. They said we were published in these magazines, but they give examples of a lot of the articles. They just say we're published, so there's no corroboration there. And importantly, this is what people get when you're going to use a magazine. They want to see that it's recognized as established major trade publication, major media, and you got to do things like establish the circulation statistics, how many are published, who's the intended audience, all that kind of stuff. So there's always a lot of research and investigation has to happen for each piece of evidence we're bringing in, particularly for the magazines. So it's not as easy when people say, oh, I got published 5 pieces. Well, I got to go and analyze if you're won awards, who is giving the awards and how are they giving the awards? What are the regulations? If it's a magazine, who is the magazine? What's their circulation? Who's their audience? How respected are they? And a lot of times it's hard to even get that information. It's online, may or may not be, and the government may or may not accept our evidence. And then they go after this evidence original contribution. Again, a hard one. They essentially say they're very helpful and stuff like that. They make this picture of Olympic medals, but they don't discuss who that person, why they have the medal, what kind of medal it is. And they give undated letters. Another one had this too, and the government hates it when you give them an undated letter. So when I read these, I reinvigorates in my understanding, reinstates it of what is the difficulties people have. And I want to share with you because, you know, if you have a good case, it's a good case. But it's never that easy with these. They could get you on any little thing. The documentation has to be gone through piece by piece to make sure it's all good. And the problems don't happen like this one, you get the case approved, or just not taking people's money and wasting all those government filing fees and say, listen, I think this is a weak one. The government is not going to buy it. Now, if you are a dancer, really a dancer should have won awards. If you have won awards for dancing, national, regional, or international, that they're recognized and we approve that, then immediately you're going to have articles written about you because you won a big award. So then you knock out 1 and 2. And if you got those, you probably are going to be dancers, judges, others. If you're that good, you run some sort of competitions where you can judge the work of others. So you're going to have 3, and you may make a lot of money. That's 4. And there was another criteria in there I can't remember. But essentially, if you're a dancer and won awards, you can knock out a bunch of these in a row and get them out of the way. But if you don't have the awards, then it's comes suspect. So that's the main thing in these kind of dancer cases. I would maybe say, what kind of awards have you won? And then take it from there. And I would really distinguish between if you're a dancer right now, if you're a coach, if you're a choreographer, each of these are on scale. Here, they kind of enmeshed them into one, I guess, because it's dancer, not used to it. But if you're an athlete, for example, there's a lot of examples. Basketball players turn coach, wrestlers and coaching wrestlers. They're like, these are different things. Baseball player become a coach. And there's standards where they say if you just became a coach, maybe you can use it if there are awards and stuff. But it gets very tricky, and you got to tell clients ahead of time that if you're going to pay us all this money to do this work, these are the problems we see that could come back, and we're going to try to fix them up and prep them and have answers for everything. But ahead of time, I can tell you they might have problems with these. So either we strengthen them up, or you take a risk and do it, or don't do it. But we want people to go with their eyes open Transparency is so important because this is a team effort. If you just hand this off your lawyer and say you take care of it, a lawyer is going to not get all the information. It's a one-on-one experience where we have to get a lot of information from you personally and talk with you and talk with you and talk with you to really get everything we can so we have the strongest case possible. It's a green card. It's your future. It's a difference in your life and your family coming here to be able to continue your extraordinary ability skills. So it shouldn't be taken lightly. It's a big deal. So we try to really emphasize that and have it in our own ethos when we're handling these cases, and the amount of studying we're doing, as you see, reading these AEO decisions every day. There's thousands of them, thousands. I just shared 3 of them, but there's thousands of these that we read every year, in the years. It is what it is. You got to be good at what you do. You got to do this kind of stuff. Thanks so much for listening. If you like, send us a resume. Go to jqklaw.com/contact and then send us a resume once you respond. We'll do an initial review there, but paid consultation, need to get more deep into it. If it's really obvious from your resume that you're a winner, we'll let you know what the situation is. But a lot of times we got to send talk with you to learn more. There's just so much more about you that we need to know. Your life is many, many years, and you can't just put it all in one sheet of paper to really understand the depth and level of the work you've accomplished. Again, I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi. Contact us at jqklaw.com/contact.